I'm delighted to welcome today Riccardo Sai, who is a visual storyteller. Welcome, Riccardo.
Hi, Elaine. How are you?
Marvellous, marvellous. All the better for seeing your handsome face today. Thank you for joining us. So, Riccardo, what is a visual storyteller?
A visual storyteller, how can I describe that? I came up with this term actually because I've been working as a director, producer, photographer, and I've been involved in all sort of visual communication in the last few years. So how can I capture all the things that I do in one word or two words? So I thought visual storyteller is probably the closest thing that can describe what I do. So effectively, I tell stories visually. But of course, when I make films, I use sound as well. So it's so that's what I do. I tell stories in a visual format.
Are you telling your stories or are you telling other people's stories? How does it work?
Interesting question. So I work with clients, so I tell other people's stories. But when I tell other people's stories and brands and organizations stories, effectively, I'm also telling my story because as a creator, I also get involved in the story at a very personal level. So using my emotion, how I react to the narratives and to the people in front of me, and to the subject. So yes, it is. I tell stories of other people, but I'm also telling my own stories.
Okay, let's go into your story then. So how did you get to be a visual storyteller? I don't suppose you woke up one day and thought, oh, I'm going to be a visual storyteller. How did it work? How did you get here?
Yeah, no, I think for me it's always been something that it was part of my DNA. In my family, like my mom, even before her, also my grandma, they both have been using like visual tools. So my grandma was a painter, and my mom, she loved art in many different ways. I've been studying music for many years as well. So in a way, I always been telling stories since I was a child. So I just changed the way I tell stories. So at the beginning, I used to find anything really and tell stories with pebbles, with mini figures, and I used to listen to a lot of stories that my grandma used to tell me, and then eventually I started to tell my own stories. So yeah, it's always been part of my journey, I would say, but it has changed over the years.
So what are the type of stories that you enjoy being involved with, whether it's kind of your, heartfelt from you or somebody else's story that they want to get some guidance from you? What type of stories do you really enjoy?
So I've been telling all sorts of different stories over the years, but I think the stories that I'm more passionate about are the one that have a meaning, that they want to say something about the world. They want to change the world in some form of or shape. So those are the stories that I'm more interested to tell. So I tend to work with people who are driven by purpose. I tend to work with brands who really want to use stories to change the world, and so I've been telling all sorts of stories during the years, but the one that really stay with me are the ones that have a very long shelf life as well. So that's why, in a way, over the years I moved slowly away from advertising, and I'm still doing that, but I work more with clients who are driven not just by profit, and so that those tend to be the stories that I'm more interested. But also in terms of the type of stories that I like to tell, I like to tell the stories that are told in an unusual way, in an impactful way, in a powerful way. So I like working with people who have something to say, who are quite bold. I like to experiment new visual way of telling stories, because yeah, I like the novelty of telling stories in different ways. So I those are the type of stories that I like.
What's your favorite one so far, or maybe give us some examples of some of the stories? Are they on your website, by the way?
Yeah, some of them are on my website. Some others are scattered on the on the internet, or maybe not even on the internet. Um, so one project that is I've been doing. I've done it like a few years ago, but it's still very close to my heart. Is actually like a two-part documentary. Which I've done. I directed and produced many years ago, and it was for a charity supporting people with affected by cancer. And so the first one was a documentary about cancer patients, and also how much cancer is, of course, is a horrible thing that happens to you, but it's also it can really transform your life, and can be quite empowering. Um, so the documentary was had a very positive message about that, and it changed my life in many different ways. It had a huge impact on the way I see life, and the way I live my life. The second film that I've done, it was almost like a follow up of that previous one, but while the first one was a very colorful. It was shot in the summer. It was a very uplifting, even though we were talking about cancer, uplifting film. The second one was about the people who are working with cancer.
Mm.
So dealing with cancer, but not in first person. So that could be surgeons, could be psychologists, there could be nurses, could be family members, etc. And what was quite interesting about that project is that it ended up being a very depressing film, because I wasn't really aware of that. You know how in a way it was more difficult for them to deal with cancer, or had some difficulties that I wasn't prepared to film in a way. And it was quite shocking that, because a lot of time we see doctors that we don't really know what does it mean to give that news to a patient. And my mom has been a psychologist before she retired for a number of years, and I could see how difficult was her job as well. So that's one project that I've done, and it was a very emotional roller coaster. Two people that were involved in the project died before the screening, so it was a very personal project that had a huge impact on my life, but also had an impact on many people's lives as well. And I believe they still use it in to kind of raise awareness about the subject. So
Where
that's
could people find that? Do you know where?
it's a project that I've done in Italy when I was before I came
Mhm.
to when I was already here. So I don't know exactly where it is. I know it's been screened in TV, etc., but it's not widely acceptable. So um so widely found
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
internet. So yeah.
Okay. It's interesting that that's the first one you mentioned, because I don't know if you're aware, but I've had stage 4 cancer, which I beat in 3 months, and I think that may be why we connected on LinkedIn. So yes, it is, and I support people with cancer and help them to reverse it or to not get it in the first place. So yeah, it's a very emotive subject, and one that people are scared of, but it's not necessary to be scared. When you know what to do, you can deal with it, and that's what I'm all about, helping people to understand that they're in control, their body is in control, but most of us live in fear because that's what we've been conditioned to do. You know, the cancer word is a very scary word for most people.
Yeah.
It needn't be. So what so you're driven by, you know, kind of purpose and doing things in a disruptive way, that's, you know, taking a different approach. What's your website, Riccardo?
So my website, my personal website is mrsai.uk. So Mr. Sai, like Mister, Sai, like my surname, .uk. So
Mr. Sai.co. So
um,
Mr. Sai.uk.
Yeah, and I'm quite active on LinkedIn as well and social media. So Riccardo Sai.
And it's Riccardo with 2 C's.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. How long have you been in England?
So I've been living in London for the last 20 plus years. So I came here to study film at the London Film School, and I've been living here ever since. So almost half of my life. Not
Right.
yet, but get there.
Right, wonderful. So what advice would you give to any budding filmmakers out there? Because it seems to me quite a hard industry to make money from, because it's so expensive to make films, and there's so many aspects to it with the tech and the locations and so on.
I'd like to give an advice to people, not only to filmmakers, but people who are interested in creativity and art, because there's a lot of things that I learn about the filmmaking process, and so making films or working in a collaborative way in art is incredible, and filming in particular, it's an industry, but it have taught me a lot about self-discipline, working in teams, and being creative under pressure, which is very difficult. But then it becomes a bit of like a habit. It became a habit. So for me, being on set is always I wouldn't say it's relaxing, but it's very. I feel myself when I'm working when I'm in the moment and I'm shooting. So it's a great practice, and I've learned a lot about life in general, about work, about people's dynamics as well. Um, and there's different departments, and they all work together. Of course, you need to be creative, but you also make sure that you finish the film, and that the film is successful as well. So there's always that conflict between making money, and also being creative, and art and not necessarily connects very well with money and with commercial, with a commercial aspect, and artists tend to be tend to not very good at managing finances, but at the same time, it's what I like about film is exactly that, is that kind of combination and conflict, constant conflict between in a way following your purpose, which is to produce the film and create something that is beautiful, that is inspiring, that is that will make other people feel deeply something, but then also coming to terms with the fact that every day costs a lot of money, and so being running a set is very expensive. There's a lot of things that I've learned, but I think to me that in a way there's a lot to learn about art in general and creativity. So it doesn't matter if that becomes your job, or if you want to apply some of that into your business, or your way you operate your life as well. But I think creativity for me, it's really about just having always a fresh perspective about things, and having always a creative approach to life, and having the capability of reinventing yourself, and so when I do my photo shoots, when I'm doing any kind of art, really, it doesn't matter how much you plan, there's always something that will go wrong. And that's the same in life. So you might think that your life is going in one way, and then all of a sudden, again, cancer could happen, or anything really can happen in your life that completely change your life. So it's up to you, and how much creative you can be about the situation, and that eventually will make you a happy or unhappy person. So that's why creativity in general, it's an incredible tool that that is so useful in any part of life, but also in business as well. So my tip would be that it doesn't matter if you want to be a filmmaker or not, just try to be creative, just create art, hang around with artists, because I think in this world we need more artists. We need more people using creativity to solve the biggest problems. So that would be my my tip.
Very good. You mentioned music earlier on. So how does music feature into your work?
heavily.
all your life?
Yeah, I mean, I sing in a choir as well, and I used to play clarinet for a number of years. So music for me, it's kind of similar to what I was saying before. It's harmony. It's a harmony between different voices. It's harmony between different elements. Um, you can find harmony and music in nature. You can have an harmonious family. You can have an harmonious culture in business. So it's a form of art, music, but it's also, again, as I was saying before about art in general and creativity, it's an approach, I think, and that's why for me, it's when I go Monday evening to sing in my choir, I'm flying. I'm like I'm drifting away for an hour and a half, and I'm there with other 50 people, and we are flying together, and it's so beautiful. So that's why, to me, music, it plays such an important part in my process as well. So I use music a lot. So my composers are always very happy because they get really good royalties because my films they feature a lot of music, so they get a lot of royalties because of that. But for me, music is a again, as I said before, it's an approach as well. And I listen to music a lot. I'm always listening to music. It makes me feel happy.
And of course, that also links in with health, because with the vibration of our voices, that resonates through our body. And there's nothing like a good old sing song, no matter what sort of music. And it's also very emotional, isn't it? I used to listen to a lot of opera, and I miss going to the opera over here where I live in Portugal. I haven't come across any opera that's near where I live, other than traveling a long way. So I do miss that. But if I'm listening to opera, I can't help but cry because it's just so emotional. It really is beautiful. And equally, if I'm listening to something that's really upbeat, I can't help but smile and dance about and everything. It's just really, really good for our health. So your website, mrsai.uk, and you've given some great tips. And is there anything that you're working on at the moment that's particularly exciting that people might be aware of, or you could point people to?
At the moment, I haven't. There's a few photo projects that I'm doing, and last year I've done a project which was very interesting. So I just after Christmas, actually no, before Christmas, I received this call asking me if I wanted to spend 2 months in one of the most remote islands on Earth, making some films for Lenovo. And it didn't take me long to say yes. To think there was a
Wow.
so I was there last year for like 2 months in Robinson Crusoe Island, which is where it wasn't called actually Robinson Crusoe. Was the guy who inspired the book was called Alex Selkirk, who was a Scottish sailor who got stranded on that island for 4 years and a half. So I got to travel there, and I got to see the house where this man used to live, and it's an incredible island, and so I feel very privileged that I was there for 2 months making films and capturing people's stories and nature and everything. So yeah, so that's one of the most meaningful projects that I've done in the last few months. There will be more, but this is the last.
Absolutely amazing. So anybody listening out there who wants somebody who's creative and driven by purpose and disrupting in a wonderful, wonderful way. So mrsai.uk, thank you for your time today, Riccardo. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, everybody.